Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Premier Madden podcast. As always, I'm your host, Finn, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Rob. How you doing, my man?
What's up?
It's good to have you back again. Anthony is going to be a little bit late today. He's got some adult things to do, so he may be popping in on the show a little bit later. But most importantly is our guest today for our episode. So this is a good friend of mine. Goes by Chris, goes by Pest. We're going to call him Pest today. He is the CM of Top Madden, which is an Xbox CFM. Top Madden actually is a combination of two leagues that went for a pretty long time. League of Champions, which has gone back to Madden in 25 and 15, and then a Monarchy, who I believe has gone on as long, I don't know how to say words here, just as long. So it's good to have you on the show, Pest. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Finn. How's it going, man?
Dude, it's good to have you on. Pest is a big podcast guy, so it's going to be very interesting to see him in the mic position and put his input. So first and foremost, I want to talk about you as a CM. All right, there's a lot of challenges to being a commissioner inside of a franchise, whether it be managing 30 different personalities, working with a CM which may have different visions of what a sim league is, and then just a lot of things having to deal with EA putting out a pretty subpar franchise mode every year. And I want to hear some of your thoughts on what you guys do to make it the best it can be, and maybe some unique things that you guys do in top. So I guess we'll start from the top there. What is it like working with, your commissioner group? What makes you guys mold so well over at Top Madden?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely important. Probably the most important thing for having a CFM that runs for a long time and runs effectively and has a good reputation is just your leadership group in general. We were lucky to have not had that many bad eggs come through, at least in Madden Monarchy before. And then, Loke had some great ones and some bad ones too. I mean, that's just part of life. There's great people and bad people. We kind of trimmed the fat and ended up with a great group. The most important thing is just being on the same page. And some of us are a little more lenient, a little more strict. It is what it is. But as long as they have that respect of their other, their peers, and we have a group of 5. So, if majority rules, 3 want something and 2 don't. The 2 just got to live with it and move on. And I think we do a great job of that. As far as management of the league outside of your leadership group, it's important to just to know the personalities of everyone that you're dealing with. We've been around for 2 years as this league and 4 years total. And a lot of us, were together beforehand, and I've known a lot of y'all a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's just real important to have that communication. We use like a Discord app, some use GroupMe or Slack or whatever, but as long as you're around and everybody's active, it's a lot of great friendships, outside of just playing Madden too.
Right. And we have and I am a part of Top Madden with Pest. We got a big meetup coming up here, trying to put one together, right? Let's talk a bit about that. We're going to the draft, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in Nashville, and we're real stoked for the draft to be coming next year. It's going to be a party according to the mayor. So it should be a real good time. And obviously, we play Madden as much as we do. We're all pretty damn big football fans. So, I'm going to go and rep my Jets, and I'm sure everybody else will be there. I know we've got 4 or 5 that are really interested, and a few others that have talked about it. If we can end up with a few, I think it'll be a good time.
Right. And you really pissed Rob off there. I can hear him, his white knuckles there. He's a big Bills fan down there, Rob.
That just made me cringe a little bit when I heard that.
Hey, we just got to gang up on the Pats, bro. Don't fight me yet.
I'm okay with that one too.
So you guys, or we did, we made a big change to Discord this year, Rob. We've been Slack for a while. Actually, you guys have always been Slack. MM has been Slack. Locke was GroupMe for a minute, and you've had experience with all 3. So is Discord your favorite so far, or are you missing Slack?
I like Discord a lot. It allows you to do a lot of customization that really helps. We can assign roles, so commissioners, trade committee, just your normal people. You can bring in a lot of bots and using API webhooks and things like that that really make it pretty cool. we've only had one downside so far, and that's so you can't really make a private chat that doesn't include the commissioners. So if you're trying to have a group with a couple of friends, for a scouting group or whatever, you really have to make your own server rather than just having a chat within a chat, if that makes sense.
Right.
But other than that, I love it. I love Discord. It's working great.
Right. And the mute button, of course. One of the big issues, Rob, that we're having is we have a certain individual in our league who like to spam the word Vance. And he will remain unnamed in order. The thing where they're saying
an advance or
yes, like at advance, but he would say Vance. And you know how like whenever a horrible tragedy happens and they say you need to name the victims, not the perpetrator, in order to not influence. So we're gonna keep this fucker unnamed. But fuck you, Dave. And the reason I say this with angst is because he has used that word so much, in particular taking Pest here, that word is muted. So anytime like you say it on accident, it's not muted, it's banned. So when you say it multiple times, you get muted. And I think accidentally I've been muted on a grand total of 6 or 7 hours together. Accidentally muted. Now there are a couple times where I've done it on purpose, but there's been about 3 or 4 times where I've gotten muted and for long periods of time. Anyways, one of the things I always like about Top and to brag about my own not my league that I'm in is how much effort you guys put beforehand. Every league that I've been in, including this year, my other league, they've already started. They're ready to hit the ground running. They let the excitement get to them of a new title coming out. We don't do that over at Top. And I think that it's in large part to the patience you guys have, mainly because all you commissioners are a little bit older than everybody in the league. I think ranging from 26, how old's Jose? 34? I'm kidding. But like, little stabs here at the league, even though a completely different league we're listening to the podcast. But my point is you do a lot of preparation, and we normally don't get the league started so one in real life. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys do and what you guys are doing for Madden 19 in particular that maybe some other leagues should be doing instead of jumping the gun and ending up with a bad franchise?
Yeah, so obviously gameplay is number one. Every game plays a little bit different, so you just got to jump in there and play a bunch of head-to-heads and start a test league and run through and see how Sim style plays and go play MUT. It's important to go play MUT and play against the cheesers, find out what the meta is, what's the cheese. Those are the things you got to be looking out for in your league when you're watching, people stream, because really people aren't playing the CMs in a cheating kind of way. They'll play a good game against them, and then they'll go play every other user like a cheeser. So it's good to know just what those things that you need to be looking for. But most importantly, we do a lot of testing. We'll start a bunch of leagues. I think I've started 10 already. I'm testing XP sliders. I'm testing dev from the games. I'm testing free agency, the draft, scouting, all kinds of things like that. It takes up a lot of time, but if you want to have a good league, it's real important. The next thing is just with the rules, like I said, you want to check out the game, see what the meta is, what's the cheese, all that. But then beyond that, you got to really play devil's advocate with yourself. And any kind of rule you want to set, people's tendency is to try to stretch it and do as much as they can that's still within the rules. So you've got to find that limit yourself before other people do. Because really, when it all comes down to it, you just got to be consistent within the Madden cycle. Every year there's a few things we'll do differently, but within Madden 19 as one cycle, we're going to do things the exact same the whole time as much as possible. Last year we ran into a few changes because, some gameplay patches and things like that came out where we had to change. We changed from all Madden to all pro, then back to all Madden. We moved around gameplay sliders because the game was just not playing well. And this year we haven't had anything like that, but I'm hearing rumors of a patch coming out around Labor Day, and if they screw something up, that might change the way things have to go for a CFM that's trying to make things realistic and sim and fun for everybody.
Gotcha. And can you talk a little bit about like the dev testing you guys have been doing around the O-lineman and the different positions and stuff? Because I think that's really important for these guys, is nailing those XP sliders.
Yeah. So when I ran a few, just offline tests. I'm the Browns in this current Madden, so I'm running through a few times, seeing what kind of development my players will get through a season, and what kind of positions I want to target for trades and free agency and that kind of stuff. And I noticed that O-line was really not getting upgrade XP as much as like D-line was getting. So Myles Garrett is a superstar, and he's getting 10 points in a year. And then you have Joel Bitonio, who's a star dev, but it shouldn't be that much different, only getting 3 or 4. So I think that kind of prompted the idea. But basically what we did was set up the team, made everybody the same age and all scheme fits, and then had one person as normal, one person as quick, one person as star, another superstar, and then another superstar with focus development, and just ran through a season with gold training on them and seeing how many points they were getting. And turns out they just weren't getting as many. So I know for a fact we're going to bump up O-line XP comparative to other positions, because you want O-line and D-line to be roughly the same. And then similar for DBs and wide receivers. Wide receivers are getting slower XP, so we'll probably bump that up a little bit. So you just got to find that balance between position groups that makes sense, so that way you don't have something unbalanced where everyone's got a 99 D-line and a 75 offensive line after season 1. That doesn't make for a long-lasting league.
Right. Especially with the change to the sim and comp and arcade mode, it seemed like it really messed up all Madden a bit. And I feel like sim all Madden really makes the defensive lines overpowered as is.
Absolutely.
So I think right there. Rob, you got any questions? Kind of dominator, man. You got any thoughts here?
Yeah, just a few questions. So I've been in a few previous leagues before this one, and the rule set and just like the almost culture has like varied from league to league, as obviously they would. But so almost a problem we're having in the current league right now is, so it's a sim style league, but some of the top tier players have, and usually the top tier players are long-time veterans of the league, have almost found ways to like twist the rules because they know, not that they won't get kicked, but they're like spot is almost cemented. Like how do you deal with players doing something like that? How like so there's hard caps such as like, okay, yeah, you can't go over like certain stats of players, like that's not something they'll do. But when they say like, yeah, try to keep a sim, mix up your playbook, like this, there's players who will just run a ton of, like last year Tampa 2, or I'm assuming this year will be like some sort of cover 3 once they get into the game. How do you deal with something like that?
Obviously, it varies case to case. Number one thing is the goal is to bring in people who aren't going to do that. While I realize that's not exactly realistic, that is the goal. And like I mentioned before, you've really got to play devil's advocate with yourself when you're creating the rules. Is what kind of rules can we set that people aren't going to have some kind of comeback or argument against why they're breaking it? We haven't formulated our rules for this year, but I know last year our rule book was like 3 or 4 pages long on a Word doc, and while it is a bit lengthy and that does limit your player base because some people don't want to play in a league that has that many rules, I think it's important, and it comes down to just being consistent with your punishment, reprimand, that kind of thing. Is we want everyone to be feeling like they're having a good time, and you don't want to alienate somebody because they made one mistake. But when something becomes consistent and you're having a consistent number of people, complaining about a certain play style or something like that, that's when it comes to forcing somebody to stream their games so you can watch. Because like I said, people play certain users different than they would play a commissioner. So if you're watching their games and they're doing something, you can suspend certain players or suspend, that person and force them to take a force loss or something like that. And then eventually, if it comes down to it, you just got to boot people, man. When you have a good league, people will come play with you, and no one person is more important than the league, including myself. If I was to do something real bad, I would take off, man. That's just what it is.
Yeah, Rob, I guess I'll pop in here and kind of commend the guys over at top. Everybody seems friendly and every CM seems approachable except for one, and that's just because he's never around, his internet's broke. But every other person in that group, very approachable, especially when you hit the deeps. But it's clear that nobody is exempt of being kicked. And we've had CMs get kicked. We've had ex-CMs that, didn't, they carried over to new Madden, didn't keep their role. Longtime members, they get kicked and completely banned. Shout out Volley.
Def.
So I want to commend them for that. I used to always joke because the original league for this one is Madden Monarchy. MM was what they went by, and I always said it stood by micromanaging because they had a ton of rules. I mean, really a ton of rules. I think if I had to do a top 3 worst rules you guys have ever had, actually, the only I can think of out the gate is the 28-point rule. You were not allowed to be. Yeah, you were not allowed to be a person by 28 more or more points. Rob, that was the hard cap. If you beat somebody more, because I think they did some stat testing, and I guess that only happens like 10% in the NFL of the time somebody gets beat by more than 28 points. Well, the issue is Madden, and there has to be some kind of comeback factor that the game puts in. So somebody ended up losing a game after they kind of pulled off the brakes on offense after being up 28 points at halftime and lost. So that rule went away. I mean, do you guys have any other obscure rules? I know it's not a bad rule, but the yards per carry rule or your yards per rule is something you guys try and do to limit. She's just going to go into detail about that. I don't want to talk too much because I know my mic is having tech problems here.
Yeah, I mean, it all just comes back to just keeping things kind of sim, specifically the 28-point rule. That rule sucks so bad. And like you said, when that game happened where somebody came back from down 28, when somebody had been punting the whole time, those are things you just learn from with experience. And honestly, adding the League of Champions guys, especially Ty, to the group, that's really helped us kind of loosen the rules a little bit, but still keep that same idea. We just want to make sure that everyone feels like they're having fun. And that was the spirit of the 28-point rule originally, was we didn't want people to feel like they were getting fucked over by somebody scoring 70 points on them and then not having a good time and leaving the league, because recruiting's a pain in the ass. It just is. So even though, the spirit of the rule was good, the rule wasn't necessarily good. And so you just got to, move on and try to find another way to attack that people running up the score on other people and them not having a good time.
Right. You got another question, Rob? I know you said you had a couple.
So I know, same league I was just talking about before. When playoffs run around, it gets a lot more competitive, and a little bit of that sim factor gets lost in my experience, at least. How do you try to balance, like, okay, yeah, like these playoffs games matter, and like you're gonna play more to win, and the same sim play style of, like, you can't run up the points, you can't run the same play over again. Cheese, like how do you try to balance that?
Well, first, there's no scoring rules in the playoffs for us. If you're good enough to make the playoffs and you're bad enough to lose by 70, that's your own fucking fault. But moving on from that, we did have some controversy last year with one of our Super Bowls. Somebody threw to the running back like 8 times, a bunch of throws to the flats and stuff like that. And, it's that was not a fun one. And I honestly still don't feel like it's resolved. Both members of that game are still in the league and are valued members to me. But, you just kind of need to reinforce the rule there. You can't take a Super Bowl away from somebody because they threw to the running back 8 times, but at the same time, you can stress that, that's not acceptable when it comes to, you have, I don't know how many completions. I'm just, ballparking here, but if he had 15 completions and 8 of them were to the running back, that's probably not a sim game style. But at the same time, if the defense was playing a defense that left the flat open every time, what is he supposed to do?
Yeah.
So you just got to be fair and communicate it. And also, try to manage the little, quabbles that people will have from things like that, because everyone cares about the game and the league and they want to win. Winning is great. But again, you can't put that above, the league and everybody having fun. That's really the most important thing is just talking through it with everybody, making sure that after everything's simmered down, that you can come to a decision. It just kind of depends on the situation. So for us with that situation, we just let everybody calm down for a couple of days. And then we went back and talked to everybody. And, we stressed to the one person, like, look, I know that that's what was open, but you got to do something else, just quit doing the same thing all the time. And that's not super egregious by any means. It's not like he was hiking hauling the whole time or, throwing verts to Tyreek Hill 17 times. It's not that bad.
Right.
But then on the other person, it's, look, I know you feel cheated or whatever, but, you got to reflect a little bit. What did you do that made that possible? And take a step back. You're still a great Madden player. You're going to get a Super Bowl. Just calm down and keep playing, and we'll figure it out.
Right. Cut you off here real quick. We are joined by Anthony. Hey, man.
Hey, what's up, man? Sorry to keep you guys waiting, and I appreciate you guys letting me lurk in the background here while we're listening to Pest talk about life as a CM commissioner.
Right. I guess one of the things I wanted to comment on, and then you can ask any questions you may have had. One of the big things that happened in another league that I wanted to bring up within the Top Madden one, but I think it ended up getting shot down or lost in the sauce, so I didn't want to. Now I get to put it on air, so Chris has to listen to me, or Pest has to listen to me. So, no, but one of the cool things that I saw coming from another league was in these scenarios where, where someone has to rule, like the situation in the Super Bowl, right? You can't take that one away from that person. And it kind of sucks because the loser doesn't really, there is no, I guess, payback for them. Maybe in the middle of a season, somebody breaks a rule with the quarterback. Yeah, and to win a game. Yeah, that person gets suspended, but what happens to the person with the loss? So I've seen some situations where a league will require the team that won to give a pick, depending on how bad. So maybe you won and it kept them out of the playoffs, or cheated them out of a Super Bowl or whatnot. Or maybe it was just a week one that didn't really matter at all, but you choose to get it for whatever reason. Maybe that is the difference between awarding somebody a second-round pick versus a fifth-round pick. And that gets real picky because it's just another thing you have to manage and things. But that's just one resolve that I've seen before in leagues. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it is what it is. Anthony, did you have any questions or anything like that for us?
I don't know what you guys covered while I was gone. As somebody who was part of a sort of commissioner board, I guess you could call it, for a few years here. I think we started Madden 16. We started our first CFM. It's always interesting to hear other people's perspectives because no two leagues are the same. Everybody runs them a little bit differently, and that's what I think I like about them so much. I've actually this year stepped down from that because the pressures of running a league they get to you. There's so many different personalities that you have to try and manage, and then you've got guys dropping and guys not playing their games and guys complaining about it, and it's just like it's such a stressful thing, and I don't think that people in the leagues really understand that, or they don't stop and think for a second, hey, these guys aren't getting paid to do this. This isn't a job. Like, we're all just trying to have a good time, and ultimately that's what it all comes down to, and it sounds like that's what Chris was pretty much covering here when I jumped in, is that these are for fun. Like, and if you're not having fun, then something's wrong, and we're going to make a change. Don't make a big deal about it. Let's talk this out like adults, which hopefully most of us are, and figure out why the fun is not being had, and if something's going wrong, that we can change that to make sure that we just make these entertaining and enjoyable for everybody.
I feel that.
Go ahead. Expand on that a little bit. For me, same deal. I started playing CFMs in Madden 15 and started as a commissioner in 16, and we played every single day for 3 years straight, I guess. And finally, towards the end of March, April of this past year, 2018, that Madden was just getting super stale, and so we decided to call it. Let the official league die. If everyone wants to, play your own side league or something, go for it. But we just needed a break, and I think that was really, really key, man. Because the commissioner group and myself, we've put in a lot of work already at the start of this one, getting it going. I think we're going to actually start the league up as soon as the week one rosters drop in about a week and a half. But I think just like you said, it's super stressful. You're managing on 30 people, and everyone, whatever you decide on a certain issue, someone's going to be upset. You can't please everybody, and it's a lot to balance, man.
Yeah, and then you have when you're trying to find that balance, you've got this guy who's been in your league for how many years. He shows up every other day to play his game on time schedules and had an issue, but he might actually be in the wrong in this situation. As the consensus from the commissioners, he might be in the wrong. So it's like, do you really piss off this long-term player who's been really reliable and is just kind of seeing this through his own rose-colored glasses for his own benefit here? Or do you rule in favor of this guy who just joined the league, might quit before the season's over? So it's like you said, it's just a balance, and it's really hard to kind of to find the right amount of balance and deciding. You have to take in so many different factors when weighing in on different perspectives.
Yep, I definitely echo that.
I got one last question. So this is a little bit obscure almost, but there's been a few problems in leagues I've been in that this happens. So and they've been dealt with different ways. So how do you deal with somebody? So trading user to user, it can be good and bad, because a lot of people don't value players and draft picks near the same as it would in real life in the NFL, and Madden just in general is a very team-oriented game. So, or football, I should say. So when a player wants to make a big move, so say like Khalil Mack, okay, just because he's a topic of conversation in NFL right now. Say someone wants to move a Khalil Mack. How do you balance like the realism aspect, like the team, like building aspects? Say like I want to move Mack because I want picks, and I'm gonna develop young players instead of just one dude who I'm gonna have to pay in 2 years. Like how do you balance everything out with something like that?
We have a few things. First thing is for year one of every CFM, every year we do a no trade list. So we'll pick, the 4 most important players to a franchise, and almost always excluding guys who are on like the last year of their deals. But then there's certain, very important players like Mac, like OBJ, like Le'Veon, those kind of guys that still make it onto that no trade list, because realistically that team would not be materially the same if that user was to quit and we had to find somebody to replace it. It would be that much harder to market to somebody else because they traded Khalil Mack for fucking peanuts or whatever. So that's number one thing. The number 2 thing is we have a trade committee, and it's varied. It used to be 7 people, and now it's down to 5. We keep it 5 separate people from our 5 commissioners for a couple of reasons. One is so that the commissioners don't have full autonomy to do whatever we want. We're not ruling on our own trades, that kind of thing. But also because it's important, because you do have attrition, through the years and through the months of a Madden cycle. People leave, and that includes commissioners, and so it's important to train your replacements. And trade committee, people who are ruling specifically on trades. That's a really good way to give people a sense of ownership for the league, so that they really value what's going on, and they want to do what's right for the league rather than maybe just for themselves. And then also just to keep a consistent group of people voting on trades to happen. So, after year one, when that, no trade list expires and people can now trade Khalil Mack or whatever, it's just important that you're getting fair value. And so we pick, 5 people who have been around leagues and our league for a long time, and that we trust to make accurate, value adjustments. Khalil Mack, someone just got a random first round pick for Khalil Mack in the middle of the season, that would really fuck the Raiders. And that person who just got Mack for just a first round pick would have significantly increased, their assets. And so you just got to keep a balance there. You don't want any team to get too overpowered. You don't want any trade rape, as they call it. So that's why we have the committee the way we do.
I mean, really what it comes down to, Rob, is that at Top Madden, we want our users to have a sense of pride and accomplishment. That's what I heard from Pest right there. Pride and accomplishment.
It's ownership, man. It's a big deal. That's all kinds of leadership, man. That's not just CFMs. That's anything that you're in a leadership position in the rest of your life. If you give the people that you're leading a sense of ownership, they're going to work really hard and do what's right.
Right. You had something, Rob?
just one little thing, just another question to add on to that. Like, do you factor in like longevity in the league and like how good your team is before that? Like all like little factors like that, not just like is the trade fair? So like if I have a stacked team already, if I have the Rams and I'm trying to trade for someone else, like do you factor that in as well, even if the value is fair?
Well, the idea is for you to give up the exact value of what you're getting. So just because you have a great team doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to trade for a top player. But I will say that we do take into account, because most all of our users, we have a few new people every year. I think this year we have 4 new people than people who weren't with us last year. But you get a sense of how good people are and, what their records are going to be year to year on average. And so you don't want a guy who's typically awful to trade his first round pick for the same value that a player like Finn would trade his first round pick. Finn is, a 12-4 player every year, whereas we have other guys who are 4-12 players. So we can't allow their first round picks to go for the same value, even at week 1, when you don't know what their records are going to be. So our sense of it is you can only, the values coming in has got to be the same as what's going out. And take into account a player's skill level, but not necessarily their experience within the league or how good their team is. And then the other thing is we have an impact pieces rule to our trades. So every year, starting at free agency right after the Super Bowl, ending at the trade deadline, you can trade, I believe it's 4 impact pieces from your team outgoing. You can bring in as many as you can get, with those impact pieces, but trading away only 4. And so that's first and second round picks, and then a list of players who are good. Basically, I try to remember the criteria off the top of my head, but I think it's like under 26 years old and over 80 overall, or under 28 years old and over 85 overall, or over 85 overall. And then anybody over 90, doesn't matter how old they are. So those would all be impact pieces. And so that way you're mitigating, someone's super trade happy and wants to trade Derek Carr, and they want to trade Khalil Mack, and they want to trade Amari Cooper, and then they get back, a few picks here and there. They can't trade away all those people in 1 year. And so that way that keeps things balanced for a longer period of time. Like I said, attrition, if all those players are gone and the Raiders guy leaves, no one's going to want to join the league as the Raiders when they don't have anything.
Right, and I'll chime in on top of that. Is whenever a new user comes in, even if we're 3 seasons in, they have to follow the 1-year untradables. I believe that's right, correct, to stop them from gutting their teams and stop people from taking advantage. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd like to claim we're right. As soon as a new user comes in, I'm sure 4 to 5 people have hit their DMs up for some of their younger talent that they may not know is young talent, or their first or second round picks. So that's something that Top does as well, as they implement that list on those guys to not only protect them, but also, like Chris was saying, in the future, whenever you have to value the first round pick, if you have a whole year under your belt, we have a good idea of how you're going to play and what kind of skill level you're at. So then we can kind of accurately grade your first round pick versus just letting you day one. You don't want to give your second up for like an old guy like Des Bryant, and then you end up in a bad situation.
Feel that, Coach Finn? What's up, dog?
a little stab at Pest. I'm kidding. We're at 5 minutes left in this little our meeting here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it short, and then I'll bring you guys back in, and we'll finish up the last 15 minutes of the podcast. That work? All right, welcome back, everybody. We had to take a quick little break to restart our meeting. Before we get back into the show, just want to remind everybody that we are part of the Premier Madden League, and that is a very intense, in-depth sim-style league that spans not just PlayStation 4, but all 3 available platforms. That's Xbox and PC. If you're interested in joining, and if you've heard some of the things that Pest has talked about during the show, as well as maybe more in-depth things, and you're looking for a league just like that, this may be the league for you. And Top, if you like that Madden on the Xbox. But if you're a PlayStation guy or PC guy, go to join.premiermadden.com and go ahead and fill out an application, read through the rule book, and then get your team and then compete in the league. So getting back to our show here, we're what I wanted to ask you guys, and maybe we can kind of wing here, is what kind of tools can EA add to make managing a franchise a little bit more or better, easier, more in-depth? And one of the things that I have brought up before, and I'll bring it up, is the interface with creating draft classes. Because the biggest issue everybody has right now with draft classes is that you can just go view them. You know, you can see which ones your commissioner downloaded, and you can just go view it and see all the ratings. A commissioner has access to all the ratings, so if he hides the name of the draft class that he downloaded, you know, there's that accountability for a commission. There's workarounds for that. One of the big things I wish was there was an interface where, let's take Lamar Jackson, for example. And I may have said this on another show, so I'll keep it real simple. But do is you assign, I guess, elite to above average, normal, or poor or bust modifier to different traits. So say I know he has great throw power, maybe top 5 in the league. I would assign him the elite elite rating to that trait, and it would have a deviation, maybe 94 all the way up to 99, and all the way down the list there. That way, from a commish standpoint, I don't really know everything. This can also happen as standard, within the development tree. So I can put, there's a percentage, since he's in a layer, there's a chance to get superstar, but he may also end up not getting it. He may end up normal. It is what it is. You're taking a risk there by picking the player. So that's what I would like to see. And maybe you guys have some ideas of what tools can make it easier for you, especially from a CM's perspective for Pest and Anthony.
That's cool. I wasn't here anyways.
Oh, and Rob, if you have any ideas as well, you want to lead off, Pest?
Yeah, man. I got a whole bunch, so I'll do a couple, and then I'll let y'all go, and then if we get back to me, then so be it. But the first one, the most important thing that I've been able to think of that would make managing a CFM easier from a CM perspective and just from a whole league perspective is, they put out that app every year, or at least the last couple of years, and it's cool. You can set force wins from that, which is big time. You can advance the league. Those two things are super important for just a week to week. But I think some more features that they should be able to add to that relatively easily would be to trade players via the app, to draft via the app, and to bid on free agents via the app. If you could do those three things, it would streamline our off-season procedure big time. And it would be something that I think every league could use, and not just us. And to go with the draft thing, if they don't want to add it to the app for whatever reason, maybe something else that could help would be to allow a commissioner to assign a draft pick from the console to a certain team. So, we do this thing called slug draft, where the first round or so we'll put the whole draft on pause, and you just pick when you're available. So that way you have a little more time to make a good pick. You have time to shop your pick if you're trying to trade it or whatever. But sometimes people aren't available to come to their Xbox for 24 hours or whatever. And so if one of the commissioners would be able to assign that pick, manually, I think that would speed up the process and just make things go a little easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. You definitely took the one that I was thinking of. I think that they have the infrastructure to do that. And actually, a few years before they released this companion app, they did have a web browser where you could even do your training. You could assign XP to develop guys. And I don't know where it went. It just sort of disappeared, one off season, and they never brought it back again. But it just seems like they've got the infrastructure to do those things. And I'm not sure what's taking them so long, because I don't know if you guys remember, Rex actually said last year that the stats showed that CFM players were the ones that were holding Madden down throughout the off season of the NFL season itself. Like, we were the ones that were still playing. The longevity of CFMs is way more than MUT. So he said, hey, CFM guys, we've heard you. Like, you guys are seriously in due of a big update. And I kind of thought that this is what they were going to do for us. I thought that they were going to listen and make this a big part of it. And instead, we got another long shot.
Fucking long shot. You used to be able to trade and pick up players and drop players from Daddy League, and I don't know what happened to that either.
Interesting.
I don't like to hear all the hate on Colt something and Devin Wade.
How about you, Rob? Any kind of
See, mine wouldn't be so much a tool to. I mean, it would help, but it would be more of just like an aesthetic tool, almost. Just like a. So obviously, we know that right now, with if you were to use a generic draft rosters, that they have the Jim Smith one of the highest, and like just random news stories of the weeks, and nobody checks that besides for the scouting, so you could very easily miss that. If they were to just have a some kind of screen that more than just like Jim Smith won the Heisman and this person had a breakout game, like more of a stat sheet and like maybe even like a highlight reel, like that would be a long stretch. I know they're not doing nothing like that, but just something more in depth, because the way it is right now is it's stupid. It's just like the best way to describe it. It's just dumb. It's real lazy, and nobody looks at it.
Right. I got one. Maybe if they could like invent some kind of set that delivers pizza to your house.
I like to do that.
Instead of you having to leave the house and go get it, it would be
almost like a delivery system.
Almost delivery. No, in all seriousness, I think being able to restart and reset a game, that could kind of help a lot, especially if the league determines that, or if the commission group determines that somebody cheesed to get a win or that it was too serious. Maybe if a game disconnects, you can pick up right where it was.
No, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think there is a force win. I know there's a force win system. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm not sure if the game's already played, if you can force win for a team that lost.
No, you can't.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And another thing that they've got the infrastructure for, if you're playing a solo connected franchise, a cloud franchise, and you rage quit or you just don't have time, you can actually pause the game and come back. So they've got the ability to do it for those games. It would just take a little bit more development to make it just save it wouldn't even need to save the stats. I know that a lot of times I'd be willing to sacrifice all of my stats from a game just so that I could get a win, because the whole recreation of a game, like I don't know if you guys do that, where you try and recreate the score and play it from there or recreate the difference in points. To me, it's just you're messing with the algorithms of the game itself and momentum and stuff. And it's like I don't feel like you ever get a fair version of a recreation, whereas if they just save the score and the time for you and you just jump back in the game and started fresh from there, like it would be so ideal, because their servers aren't stable enough, and we understand that, and you're going to have games that disconnect, whatever, but like to have to start them all over again is just such a drag. And I actually lost a game the other day against a guy that I know is a weaker opponent, and came back and played him and should have got all my points back, but didn't want to mess with the momentum too much. And, it's early in the season. I cut him a break. Guy got every lucky break possible in the second game and beat me. So I feel like that disconnect lost me my first matchup.
I feel that. You got any more, Pest? I know you said you had a bunch.
Yeah. So I had to reset the game. That's a great idea. I would love that from a CM perspective. I think that's phenomenal. Just from a user perspective, I would love an update to the practice mode. Man, that would be huge. If you could scrimmage your defense on like down and distance, or just do a drive or whatever against your own defense, that'd be big time. Another one would be to like scrimmage another user. So there's a lot of times when you're in, you have a 48-hour advance window, you've already played your game and you just want to play with your team, but you want to play a person. So two options would be, one, scrimmage somebody within the league, just like a setup. Or if you could export the roster from the CFM, start your own and then play a friend, that way.
Another thing that we used to be able to do, but they took that out.
Yeah, exactly. I think those two would be huge. And then the last one I had it goes back to the testing that we've been doing on our league. And that would be the ability to adjust XP earned from gameplay. Right now you can adjust XP sliders and it affects your, development and your focus training in the awards. But the XP earned from gameplay is still jack shit when it comes down to it. It'd be great to be able to just bump that part up and not bump up the, the weekly development or the award XP. If you could separate those things into layers, I think that would add a more realistic deal where where if you wanted to dev a young player, you got to play him. And that would stop people from just sitting a cornerback on the bench for a year, deving him all year long, and then next year he plays and has 90 man and 90 zone or something like that.
That would be awesome. My only hesitation with that is then you're encouraging people to sort of cheese with a rookie guy. Like they're going to force feed them just for that in-game XP. That'd be the only thing I would see coming out of that.
Maybe not make it performance-based, but snap-based. You learn based on snaps, right? So you take an inherent risk. You're going to get him a little bit more in-game XP by playing snaps versus zero. But at the same time, you're taking that inherent risk because you're putting a low overall, pretty raw athlete on the field. So you have to play the game of masking. I do like Pest of exporting. My own issue is, that's when we're kind of like scrimmaging and playing games, I think that's the beauty of, like in real life sports is you only get one game day. So you shouldn't be able to get out there. I don't think you should be able to get out there and just like lab with your team all the time. Like it kind of creates that like, okay, it's game day now. I have to perform. I can't just practice with this team. So it's, I got it down packed. But what I do like to see kind of playing off of that point is maybe in the preseason, maybe we can do like joint scrimmages and stuff like that. So while people are waiting during the preseason, these things to start, they can just do joint practices and play the game. And we kind of can do that because all you have to do is play the preseason game and quit out early. Actually, maybe I just answered my own question. Whatever.
Yeah, I'll take anything.
There goes that. I do want to flow this kind of into another question we kind of talked about earlier, which is improving some of the realism. So my question to you, all three of you guys, would be if you could improve something within the ratings, and I guess an example, and then I'll give you my answer. So an example that we were talking about in our top Madden chat today was they made a new thing in Madden Night where traits are no longer biased. It's just the whole dev system change here. So if you draft a player that has big hitter or that doesn't have big hitter, he can never get big hitter. He either has it or is my mic messing up? Is he any better?
Not much better, but we can understand you.
All right. He said, holy microphone, Batman. I'm sorry. I'll try and keep my talk to a minimum. Did we miss anything? Or did you get the whole gist there?
No, you're good.
Okay. You can't buy the traits. So one of the things I wanted to see is the CFM's biggest devils is the maker feature, right? In which some leagues just straight up ban it. I know we ban it. I don't know what Premier Madden League stance is. I should probably go read the rule book. But if you don't know what the playmaker feature is, you can use the right stick when you're even when you're in the pocket, and you can redirect a player. And it's a pretty cheesy thing. In theory, what you're doing is you're just telling your receiver to get upfield, and then you could throw it just like you could in real life. But there isn't a true defense to it because it kind of breaks the AI. What I would like is maybe we attach playmaker as a trait to certain quarterbacks. I would feel a lot less upset about it if guy that had Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz were able to do that playmaker trait. And if they had it, I would be more apt to let them use it in franchise mode instead of everybody and anybody. Now there's value into that player having that trait, or maybe it's attached to their awareness. A more aware quarterback can make that kind of in play, on the fly kind of adjustment versus, maybe Jared Goff and have it. Maybe whatever 7 overall Jackson doesn't have it. Well, actually, Lamar might have it. So I guess that's something. I don't inherently see the flaws because I'm always right, but that's something I would like to see added. What about you guys?
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I think, associating traits, with a certain stat, not necessarily overall rating, but maybe, sideline catches was associated with having 92 catching or more, or, kind of like they do with certain animations where you have to get to a certain threshold to get a certain animation. I think if taking away the ability to dev traits in general, I'm not sure I 100% agree with it. I like it better than being able to give everybody every trait. But I think there's a sweet spot in there that they missed where maybe it's a zone rating where if your zone is high enough, then your play ball goes from conservative to normal or from normal to aggressive or something like that.
For me, I want to hit on the playmaker because my stance when I was running our league a couple years ago is I was always kind of the neutral party. The way I saw it is if you rolled out one time, a a lot of people complain about rollouts and stuff being a cheesy part of the game. If you roll out once and make a sweet throw and a like real clutch moment, it's okay. Like that happens in the NFL. Like, and those end up being like the most epic plays. Like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, those guys make those kind of plays all the time. And to basically neuter that, I'm not a big fan. So I'm not a huge fan of not allowing playmaker. I don't actually use playmaker myself personally. It's just another level of the game that I've just never really added because it's always been banned. But if it's part of your offense, then yeah, no, that's abusing the game. But if you're just like, you know, it's 4th down, it's 3rd and 20, you need an epic play to even have a chance to stay in the game, and you use it then because, you know, the defense rushed you outside, like that's okay. Like I feel like in those moments, I don't have a problem with it personally. It's when people abuse it and it's actually just part of their offense that I think it's kind of cheesy. And as far as the traits go, the trait that I've always been a big fan of was the clutch trait, but nobody really knows what it does. Like it's just this like mysterious trait that it's like, is my guy actually going to make a play when it counts, or is that just something that you have on there to waste XP on? I remember when I first started doing CFMs with 32-man leagues, I always went and got it because, especially for my quarterback, it was always one of the first things I got because those moments are so important. But then I felt like it never made a difference. It would be cool if the clutch trait was something that you had to earn by making clutch plays, and then you got a like 4th quarter boost in attributes for awareness, and you know your quarterback, if he has it, he's more accurate in the 4th quarter stuff, or you know at the end of a half, or even stuff like that. I'd love to see more of a clutch factor in the game. I think that'd be awesome.
Dope. I agree with that. What about you, Rob?
Mine is almost similar to Anthony's, where it's like I know they have something similar in like my league and even like my career in 2K, almost like an on fire system. And they have like a confidence system, but in reality, by the end of the season, like if you're a good team, most of your players will have like 90+ confidence, and it's almost like overused. And if they had almost like a player's like hot, so like everyone like players go through hot streaks in the NFL, it could be even like a whole season. But like if a player's hot, you know beforehand, like this week, like this player is like he's had 2 hot games and now he gets like a +2 in catching and +1 in route running, whatever it ends up being. And then also your opponent should know that player is going to be hot this game, so he can almost game plan around it. Just add another aspect, something like that, because like players like this season, Keenan Allen, I know from firsthand when he played the Bills, like he was on like a 3-game like 100-yard like. Well, it was 100 yards or a touchdown streak, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. Like, and for like 3 weeks in a row, like, and knowing that, it's like, okay, well, not only is he performing, but the team's gonna lean towards him because he is performing. So it just adds another aspect of just something else to the game plan.
Realism, yeah, get you going week to week. Speaking of that, does anybody know if they fixed that, like, you know, the game planning stuff for their upcoming team? Remember how it used to be broken and never displayed the correct stats? Does anybody know if they ever fixed that within practice mode?
Probably not.
Yeah, that's
I haven't checked it, but I just assume that it's going to forever be broken.
Gotcha. You guys got any more questions or anything you guys want to bring up? Oh, good. We talked Chris's ear off.
No, I loved it, man. I just had to mute a little bit to keep the dog barking out.
No worries. We're pushing about an hour 15 here, so I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. Pest, it was always good to talk to you, man. Good to have you on the show today. Looking forward to having you come back in, and we can talk a little bit more about Madden, maybe not CFM, maybe CFM, talk a little bit about, you know, the kind of things you guys have experienced over the course of this cycle. So it was really good to have you, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Premier Madden, for you know, promoting community within the league or within the, you know, CFM life. You know, you said your thing about Premier earlier for Top. If you ever have any interest in joining the Xbox League, it's daddyleagues.com/top. It's been great being on here, man. Best of luck.
Awesome. And then thank you guys for coming on, Anthony and Rob. As always, it's good to have you guys on the show. Podcast, make sure you subscribe. We're on iTunes, Google Play, anywhere where podcasts are available except Spotify. That'll be coming soon. We got a lot of guests coming up soon. Equipment Guru liked my tweet, so I'm pretty sure we're best friends now. So he might be coming on. Dan Hatman, he is the lead of the Scouting Academy. He's going to be coming on the show. We're going to talk in depth about his experiences with scouting. He has a ring with the New York Giants, and then his experiences with Madden and some of the cool stuff that they're doing over there at the Scouting Academy. Not only for the football realm, but the Madden realm, cool stuff. So make sure you're on out for that. Any closing statements from Anthony or Rob?